All right, so I want to share a story that kind of really impressed me. And it's part of one of the ways, the main principles about how you can actually access your own self healing superpowers. And the basic principle is don't believe everything you think. And it's a very deep and powerful thing. So let's unpack it a little bit. I had a conversation this week with someone. It was actually one of the participants in my Inner Healing Mastery class who's rapidly becoming one of my heroes. And let me tell you why. Special, special guy, right? So we're sitting in class, there's a discussion going on with somebody else, and he puts up on the thing like, does anybody mind if I smoke? And some other things were happening, and I asked him just to hang on with that for a second, and then I asked him, so you want to smoke? How come? What's going on? He said, I'm having a nicotine fit, and I just need to smoke. And I said, well, look, it sounds like other people don't mind if you smoke, and I don't mind if you smoke, and you can certainly smoke. But what I want to encourage you to do is just spend a moment before you light up and notice what it's like. And he's like, well, what do you mean what it's like? I'm having a nicotine fit. I need nicotine, and I need to smoke. And I'm like, okay, you can do that, but explore what is the experience of a nicotine fit. Are you willing to do that? And he said, okay, sure. So I said, kind of like we do in this practice over and over again, let's be mindful of what a nicotine fit really is. And so he sat, and he had kind of a stern, heavy look on his face, and I encouraged him, just notice the physical sensations. And he said, yeah, my heart's pounding, and I feel nervous, and I feel edgy and irritable. Like, so let's just sit with that together for a little bit. And he closed his eyes, and it was literally about 6 seconds that his face got a little softer, and I just watched. And another 3 seconds he started to smile, and then he opened his eyes and he goes, that's amazing. And I'm like, what? What's amazing? He said, I've been smoking for so long. It's been like 20 or 30 years. And I've never done that before. I've always just thought when I need a nicotine, I need nicotine, and that's all there is to it. And then I just feel more relaxed now, like I don't need to smoke. And I'm like, well, what happened? He said, well, I just noticed the feelings I was having, and I kind of hung out there, and then they just kind of relaxed. And I said, great, and what about your thoughts? And he said something like, yeah, I really believed that I needed nicotine. Maybe I suggested that, and he agreed. I forget exactly what happened. But here's the point, is that he was having a physical experience of pounding heart and irritability. And he had become conditioned to believe that when I have these feelings, I need to smoke. That's a thought. That's a thought in the form of a belief. And it's something that gets generated around that physical, emotional experience of a nicotine fit. But what's pretty clear from his case is that thought was false. So that's the superhero, superpower clue key, which is not believing everything you think. This is relevant to everybody, right? Because no matter what you're going through, whatever your health condition is, whatever your pain, emotional, physical challenge is, we all are full of automatic thinking processes that don't serve us and frequently are just false. And the first thing is to notice them and be aware of them. The second thing is to question them when they come up. And there's two levels to this. One level is to just be aware and notice there's thoughts and let them go. And keep your attention on the present moment stuff, on the physical sensation, on the emotion, which is what he did in the exercise. He just stayed with those physical, emotional feelings, and then the thought went away. The trouble is, when we engage the thought frequently, what we do is we generate more emotion related to the thought, and we bring ourselves kind of into a vicious cycle that intensifies the sense of, oh my gosh, I need to do this or that, or I can't stand this, or this is not okay, or I can't deal with it, or whatever thing it is. The second part is actually in a structured way starting to question your thoughts. And that's very helpful for some people, because some people really need to unpack it. They're very intellectual. And so, for instance, the work of Byron Katie, a lot of people have heard about that. She was a genius, and she kind of derived this thing by herself from her own experience. And I don't teach that in my course, but it's a good thing. And basically her thing is, look, ask yourself 4 questions. When you have a thought that seems like it might not be serving you, the first thing, is it true? And if the answer is no, then you want to ask yourself, well, what is it that happens when I actually believe that thought? How do I react? If you think it is true, then ask yourself the question, do I absolutely know that this is true? And the idea is just to wait and let the question percolate and not try to answer it right away, but just sit there with it and let a fuller sense of the situation show up. Okay, and so like I said, the third question is, how do I react or behave according to this belief? And the fourth question is, how would I be without this belief or thought? And it's a very powerful inquiry method. It's a structure. And if you're dealing with a lot of difficult thoughts, it might be worth exploring that and going into that and learning those techniques. It's powerful. The other thing, like I said, is just staying with the actual physical and emotional experience of the moment. So whether you're just going to notice the thoughts and let them go, or whether you're going to do some inquiry in, the main thing is kind of cutting through and starting to see a more real picture of what's going on. And basically taking those thoughts and seeing what their real nature is. And what I want to suggest is that most of the time, when we have thoughts that are negative, fearful, difficult, challenging, those aren't really thoughts. Those are emotions disguised as thoughts. And usually they're driven for our emotions. According to the Torah tradition, we have 2 levels of thought. We have a level of thought that's actually an elevated, clear knowing, or a clear, rational, discriminative thinking process. And those are really important parts of who we are. But then we've got these thoughts that were kind of our lower thoughts. And our lower thoughts are really emotions in disguise. And that's what gets us into trouble and feeds into these vicious cycles of emotion, 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 thought, emotion, thought, emotion, thought. And so the whole idea is unmasking that and realizing what's really going on is I'm having some hard feelings and connecting to those hard feelings and learning to work with them, learning to be with them, learning to care about them. So what does that mean? What it means is, the third part, is just learning to be present. Learning to be present to my physical experience, to the emotions coming up around my physical experience, and again, not getting lost in them, but letting it be kind of like I'm sitting on the side of the river on the bank, and the flow of my experience is kind of flowing by. And I'm aware of it. I'm giving it 20% of my attention, but I'm staying anchored in the here and now. You can stay anchored in the here and now by being in touch with your breathing, by being in touch with your bodily sensations, by being in touch with the sounds that are around you, or by being in touch with your own sense of divinity and connection to God. You can focus your attention on a line of scripture or Psalms, and being in touch in a real, genuine, discerning way with your physical, emotional experience, but keeping yourself anchored in here and now. I'm sitting here on the bank of the river. My flow of experience is flowing by. Let me just kind of notice it out of the corner of my eye and see what happens. So, just a little piece of Torah wisdom to add to this, which is the sages of the Torah tradition. They used to talk about this kind of stuff a lot. And they would say, look, we've all got an aspect within us that tries to convince us to do things and think things that aren't in our best interest. And that aspect within us is part of us. And it's got an emotional quality, it's got a physical quality, it's got a thought quality, and it's going to come and try to entice us to do stuff that really doesn't serve us. What do you do when that creature comes to you? What the sages say is, take him to the study hall. And what that means, it's kind of a code. What it means is plug into your higher consciousness and your higher knowledge. The study hall is where we access that, but you could access it wherever you are. You could access it in your office, or when you're walking down the street, or you can access it when you're out in the forest, or whatever it is. What it means is stopping, pausing, waiting, connecting with your own deeper inner sense of self. In the Torah tradition, that's your soul. It's your neshama. It's a quiet place that we all have access to just by stopping, connecting with our breathing, connecting with presence, connecting with God's presence. Whether or not you believe in God, you still have a still place inside of you. And so that's a resource. And that's part of how we plug into our self-healing superpowers. hope it's been enjoyable and useful. Looking forward to talking with you again. All the best.